My stepmother used my mom's insurance money to pay for her own daughter's wedding. When the lawyer stood up during the ceremony, everyone turned to stare at me. My name is Ava Morgan. I'm 23, I drink cheap coffee, and I still talk to my mom when I'm alone, out loud, like she can hear me. She died 2 years ago from a sudden stroke, and some days it still feels like I'm walking through fog. I never thought grief could be heavy, like something you carry on your back. But what hurt worst wasn't only losing her. It was what happened after. I learned people can look you in the eye and tell you they love you, then take everything your mother left to keep you safe. I didn't plan to be anyone important at the wedding that morning. I wore a plain navy dress, sat in the third row on the groom's side because someone had messed with the seating chart, and kept my head down. It wasn't my wedding. It was my stepsister Brianna's. White roses everywhere. A live string quartet. A crystal glasses even during the ceremony, because a toast is a moment. That's what the sign said in gold script. And in the front row, my stepmother, Linda, looked like a queen in silver. She smiled the way people do when they win. The pastor had just said, "If anyone has just cause why these two should not be wed," and everyone laughed softly because nobody ever says anything. The quartet began a sweet piece. The air smelled like flowers and hairspray. My stomach twisted. I knew the money that paid for all this. I knew the color of the envelope, the insurance company's name, the way my mom had whispered, "Promise me you'll finish school. Ava. You'll be okay." I set it up. I knew Linda had found a way to move it. And I knew, today, the truth was coming into the light. The double doors at the back of the church opened. Not soft, not polite. They swung hard. A man in a dark suit strode down the aisle with a folder under his arm. Every violin string seemed to freeze mid-note. He didn't look at the pastor. He didn't look at the bride.
He looked at me.
"Ms. Morgan," his voice carried, calm but firm. I stood up without meaning to. My knees shook. Linda twisted around in her seat, like an animal seeing a shadow. The man stopped beside my row. "I'm attorney Samuel Whitaker," he said. "I apologize for the interruption, but this pertains to a protected beneficiary's funds and a court order signed this morning." He raised the folder. Paper flashed white under the church lights. All the air left my chest at once. People turned in their seats. The groom's mother clutched her pearls for real. The whispers started in little waves. And then, every face, the whole church, like a tide turning, swung toward me. I felt the heat crawl up my neck. I heard Linda's breath catch. Brianna's smile fell like a mask sliding off. The lawyer met my eyes, and for a second, it was only the two of us in that huge, bright room. "Ava," he said quietly, so only I could hear, "we're ready." And then the string quartet stopped playing, the pastor cleared his throat, and someone in the back said, "What's happening?" Like it was a TV show. The sound of my own heartbeat was loud enough to fill the ceiling. I hadn't come to make a scene. I had come to end one. But to understand how I got here, how a lawyer ended up at my stepsister's wedding with a court order and my name on his tongue, you have to know what happened after my mom died, and how kindness can be both a door and a shield when people try to use you. The day after the funeral, Linda knocked on my bedroom door with a casserole I never ate. "Sweetheart," she said, stepping in like the room had always been hers. "We're family. I'll handle things. You don't need to worry." I was numb. I remember nodding, hugging the casserole like it could keep me warm, and saying thank you even though I didn't mean it. My dad had married Linda when I was 16. He wasn't mean, he was tired. He died the summer before Mom did, a heart attack on a lawn chair. I didn't have many grown-ups left. Linda was what I had. Mom had a small life insurance policy from the hospital where she worked the night shift. It wasn't millions. But to us it was a door. College money, rent money, car money. It was breath. She had named me the beneficiary years ago. "So you don't have to be scared," she told me on a Sunday night long before, "when I'm not here to help you." After the funeral, Linda handled the papers. She said the company needed her, as your guardian until the transfer finishes, even though I was already 18. I didn't understand everything. I felt guilty asking questions. Every time I tried, she touched my arm and said, "You just lost your mother. Don't burden yourself with numbers." Let me love you by taking this on. Kindness can be a trap when it's used like a net. For a while, life went quiet. The house didn't last anymore. I poured coffee at Mel's diner and did my classes at the community college with my laptop balanced on the counter like a secret. I studied after midnight. I cried in the bathroom when no one was watching. Sometimes, when I fell asleep, I'd dream in full color. My mom's blue scrubs, the smell of her vanilla lotion, the way she'd say, "We make it work, kiddo." Months passed. Linda started saying, "We're a family of women now," as if that meant something. She bought a new SUV. She booked a trip to Scottsdale with her girlfriends. She whispered on the phone a lot. Brianna, who is only a year older than me but had always treated me like a little sister she had to babysit, began to post pictures of wedding venues even though her boyfriend had not proposed yet. When I asked about the policy, Linda smiled with all her teeth. "Grown-up stuff takes time," she said. "Don't let it make you bitter. You don't want to be one of those girls who talk about money all the time. It's not becoming." I wanted to say, "It's not money. It's my mom's promise." But I stayed quiet. I told myself being patient was mature. At the diner, old regulars taught me slow lessons. Mr. James told me grief doesn't go away. It just changes shape. Mrs. Alvarez pressed a folded 20 into my palm and said, "Kindness given out is a boomerang." I was learning to be gentler with myself, to look for small light. I put my tip money into a jar with a post-it that said, "For a safer future." I thought I could be okay even if the policy took forever. I thought trying my best would be enough. Then came the day I found the first proof. I was at the house to drop off a borrowed sweater, a soft gray thing I'd worn to my shift because the diner is always cold in the mornings. Linda wasn't home. Brianna was upstairs, blow-drying her hair to club music. The whole place smelled like hairspray and lemon cleaner. I knew exactly where the office was and exactly how much I didn't belong there. But the sweater had fallen behind the chair, and when I bent to pick it up, the bottom drawer of Linda's desk was cracked open half an inch. I didn't plan to look. I swear I didn't. But the name on the top envelope was the same as the company I had memorized from Mom's file, Pioneer Life and Health. I felt my face go cold. Something in me, a small brave piece, said, "You have a right." Another voice said, "Don't make trouble." I stood still and listened to both. Then I slid the drawer all the way out. Inside were statements. Not one, not two. A stack, thick and neat, banded with a gold clip like a little trophy. I lifted the first one. It was addressed to Linda, not to me. It showed transfers from an account ending in 3941 to an account ending in 1127. Over and over. Amounts that made my blood rush to my ears. The memo lines on some read things like household and emergency, but on one, in a rush script that looked like a bank teller had typed too fast, it said, "Beneficiary funds, temporary use until event refund." Event. I flipped to the next page, and the next. There were notes. A sticky tab flagged a payment for a venue deposit to a place called The Willow at Riverbend. My eyes found the number, and it was more than my rent for a year. Another statement showed a charge for a custom gown boutique. Another for a catering company that had a swan logo. I stood there, heart pounding, sweater forgotten in my hands. I could feel my mother's ring on its chain against my collarbone. I pressed it so hard it hurt. I took photos. My hand shook, but I lined up each page like a soldier and clicked. 1, 2, 3, proof like bricks. I told myself I wasn't stealing. I was saving. Not money. The truth. After a long minute, I slid everything back exactly how I'd found it. I closed the drawer. I put the sweater over my arm. I was halfway to the door when Brianna called down the stairs. "Eva, did you take my charger?" The blow-dryer cut off. Her footsteps started. I left fast, maybe too fast. In the driveway, my hands were still shaking as I unlocked my old Corolla. I sat there with the door open, air hot and empty, and looked at the photos. I thought about Mom's last words to me in the hospital. "Love hard, kiddo. Don't let your heart go small." Love is big, I told myself. But love without truth is just decoration. That night, I went to Mel's for the dinner rush. I poured coffee. I wiped tables with lemon-scented spray. I gave a free slice of pie to a man who looked like he'd just been left. It was my small rebellion. Be kind even when life is not. Mrs. Alvarez saw the storm behind my eyes and squeezed my arm. You look like a girl who's standing on a bridge, she said. I told her. I just found out my stepmother is using my mom's insurance money to pay for my stepsister's wedding.
She didn't gasp.
She didn't make it bigger than it was. She said, calm as a lake. Then you will need a good pen and someone who knows how to use one. A lawyer? I asked, feeling both brave and ridiculous, like I was saying a grown-up word with baby teeth. A lawyer, she nodded.
And a list.
You will not go to war with noise. You will go with paper. I couldn't afford a lawyer. That was the next thought, loud as a train. But kindness has friends. 2 booths down, Mr. James leaned over. My nephew's a paralegal, he said, like he'd been waiting for this moment. He can guide you to legal aid. They have people who fight this sort of thing. Money taken from a beneficiary without consent? That's a bell that wants to be rung. We drew up a list on the back of a receipt.
Dates.
Page numbers. Words I didn't fully understand yet. Probate, fiduciary duty, constructive trust. I went home and put all the photos in a cloud folder with a boring name, like grocery lists, because fear makes you careful. I set a password on my phone for the first time. I wrote down questions for someone I had not met. The next morning, I went to the legal aid clinic in a building that used to be a school. The floors were old wood, and the hallways echoed. A woman with kind eyes and gray hair named Trina listened to me for 30 minutes without interrupting. When I finished, she said, Ava, what happened to you is not small. And it is not complicated either. It's wrong. But we will do it the right way. I breathed for the first time in what felt like weeks. Trina connected me with Attorney Whitaker, who took my case pro bono after Trina said my name like a favor. I don't do weddings, he joked, then saw my face and added, I do justice. We met in his office with books up to the ceiling, and he taught me in simple words. Your mother named you the beneficiary. That means the money is yours. If someone else moved it without permission, we ask a judge to move it back. We show proof. We do not shout. We do not threaten. We file. Will Linda go to jail? I blurted, and then felt bad for asking it like a child talking about monsters. Let's walk before we run, he said gently. First, we stop the spending. Then, we pull everything into the light. The law like sunlight. He sent letters that sounded like thunder, demands for accounting, notices to the venue, the caterer, the boutique. He asked for an emergency hearing. He told me we would not crash the wedding. We would not be those people. We let the court speak, he said. Calm is your power. I tried to live regular life while the papers moved through the world. But life kept pushing. Brianna posted a photo of her bridal shower under a balloon arch that spelled bride in rose gold. I saw the cake layers and thought of hospital bills that would never come because Mom was careful. Linda left me a voicemail. I wish you would stop being dramatic, Ava. You're ruining your own chances with this attitude. We could help each other if you'd just be kind. It made me want to scream. I kept thinking about what kindness actually is. Kindness is not silence while harm happens. Kindness tells the truth, even when it shakes. 1 week before the wedding, Trina called me during my shift and said, the judge agreed to hear it. Next Friday morning, the same day. The day of the wedding, I whispered, setting down the coffee pot before my hand burned. We'll be quick, she said. If the order is granted, we will serve it immediately. The venue cannot accept funds that are flagged. The bride can still get married, she paused, just not with your mother's money. The idea felt both like mercy and like fire. People could still have their love, but not with theft. I slept poorly that week. I wrote a letter to my mom in a notebook and read it out loud in my car because saying things makes them real. I am trying to be good, I told her. I am trying to be gentle and strong at the same time. I am scared, but I won't run. The morning of the wedding, the sky was clear as glass. I wore the navy dress because it was the quietest thing I owned. I went to the courthouse first. The hearing was short. The judge was a woman with a kind face and a voice like a teacher. She looked at the statements. She looked at the law. She said, "This is improper. Funds designated for a beneficiary may not be diverted without consent. Temporary restraining order granted. Accounting ordered within 10 days." Attorney Whitaker turned to me in the hallway after and said, "We have a paper shield now. It may not make you feel safe yet, but it is an umbrella in a storm."
We drove separately to the church.
I sat in my car for a minute, hands on the wheel, breathing slow. I thought about my mom's hands, how they always smelled faintly, like soap. I thought about the first time Brianna braided my hair when I was 16 and told me a secret about a boy, and I believed we could be sisters. People are not one thing. That truth is hard and soft at the same time. You can hold someone's good and still not let them harm you. I went inside. I found a seat in the third row because the front rows were a place I no longer belonged, and I didn't want to fight about it. I kept my eyes on the aisle runner, white satin that looked like winter. The pastor began. The music rose and fell. I felt everything and nothing. And then the doors opened, and Attorney Whitaker walked in with that folder, and the room tilted like a sudden wave. He said my name. The world turned to look. In that breath where every face faced me, I saw Linda's mask slip all the way off. Her mouth opened. The corner of one eye twitched. She gripped her clutch, so tight it looked like she'd crush it. Brianna looked from the lawyer to me to her groom, like she was trying to do math she had never learned. It would have been easy to stand up and make a speech, to call Linda a thief, to end the wedding with a shout. But the thing about revenge is this. The best kind doesn't make you small. It makes the truth tall. Attorney Whitaker lifted the folder like a flag. "By order of Judge Amelia Reyes of the county court," he said, voice steady, "the court has granted a temporary restraining order regarding the use of funds belonging to Ms. Ava Morgan as the sole beneficiary of the late Rebecca Morgan. The order halts any use or transfer of said funds for this event. The venue and vendors have been notified." Someone gasped. Someone else said, "Oh my God." The pastor took off his glasses. The violinists looked at one another like birds ready to fly. Linda stood up, so fast her chair scraped. "This is absurd," she snapped, color rising in her face. "You can't do this. This is a wedding." "It is a wedding," Attorney Whitaker said, not unkind. "And it can still be a wedding, just not with stolen money." The room went from warm to ice. I felt my own breath go cold. My hands were steady. I hadn't expected that. "Mom," Brianna whispered, voice high and thin. Linda shot me a look I had never seen before. It wasn't anger. It wasn't fear. It was something like shame trying to hide. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "Ava," she said, and it came out small. Can we talk? Just you and me." She gestured toward the side door, where the choir waits before they sing. Her fingers trembled. Attorney Whitaker looked at me. His eyes asked a question. "Are you safe to go?" I nodded once. My legs felt like they were mine, but I walked toward her. We stepped into a narrow hallway that smelled like dust and old hymnals. The door swung shut with a tired click. The noise of the church muffled into a hum, like wind through a window. Linda leaned against the wall and finally exhaled. Her makeup was too perfect. It made her look fragile, like a porcelain doll in a hurricane. She didn't look like a queen now. She looked like a person. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she said. "I thought," she swallowed. "I thought I could move it around, and then put it back. I was going to put it back. Ava. I swear." "You signed my name," I said. I didn't raise my voice. It felt like the words belonged to the building, not to me. "You moved it without asking me. You told me to stop talking about money, like I was greedy. It was my mom's gift. I raised you after your father died," she said quickly, grabbing for something to stand on. "I put a roof over your head. We're family. Families share." "Families don't steal," I said. My voice still wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. We stood in the quiet for a long breath. Somewhere in the big room, a baby cried and then quieted. Life goes on, even when yours feels like it's splitting. I'm sorry, Linda said, a whisper. Her eyes glistened, and for one instant, I saw her as a girl who had been taught that power meant keeping what you could. I panicked. Everything is so expensive. Brianna has waited for this day her whole life. I didn't want her to be embarrassed. I've been embarrassed for 2 years, I said. I couldn't pay for school. I worked doubles. I ate ramen and told myself it was okay. But today isn't about embarrassing anyone. It's about stopping a lie. Her lip trembled. What do we do now?
The right thing, I said.
You call the vendors you paid with my money and you arrange to pay them from your own funds, or you cancel the extras. You stop pretending kindness means silence. You tell the truth. Her eyes widened like I had slapped her. And then they narrowed, quick and mean, like the old Linda I knew. If you do this, she hissed, you will ruin her wedding. I thought about my mom's hands again. I thought about being small, and how I didn't want to be small anymore.
No, I said.
You did that when you took what wasn't yours. Something flared in her face, and then it went out. She looked older suddenly. She reached for the door handle. Let's go, she said flat, and pulled it open. We stepped back into the bright church, into the eyes and whispers and gold light. Attorney Whitaker stood to one side, reading his watch like a priest reads a psalm. The pastor held the program like a shield. Brianna clutched her bouquet too tight. A petal fell like a tiny flag surrendering. And then, before anyone could say another word, the side doors to the church slammed open with a crack so loud it sounded like thunder. 2 men in dark suits strode in. One wore a badge on his belt that caught the light like a blade. Are we in the right place? The taller one said, voice deep and official. We're here for Ms. Linda Hargrove. We have questions about fraudulent signatures and misappropriated funds. The room went dead silent. Every head turned again, as if one person could pull a string in the ceiling and move us all. Linda froze. Brianna gasped. The groom stepped back like the floor had turned to ice. My heart climbed into my throat. The taller man held up a document like the ones in Attorney Whitaker's folder. Ma'am, he said calmly, we'll need to speak with you. Now. And that is how the first chapter of truth sometimes sounds. Not like shouting, not like triumph. Like paper. Like footsteps. Like a door opening that can't be closed again. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. The whole church held its breath with me. Then Linda pressed her lips together until the lipstick looked like a wound, and she lifted her chin. I'm not going anywhere, she said. The taller man nodded once, slow, as if he had expected that answer and brought a plan for it in his pocket. Then we'll do it here, he said, and he reached for his badge. And the lights in the church flickered, the sound system squealed, and the back row erupted as someone shouted, Call 911. I turned in time to see Mr. Dalton, the groom's elderly grandfather, clutch his chest and crumple in slow motion, his cane clattering on the stone floor like a warning bell. Guests leapt from their seats. White roses toppled. The violinists dropped their bows. The aisle split into chaos. And in the middle of it, Linda took one small step backward toward the sacristy door, eyes on the men with the badge, a new plan forming in her face like a storm building over the ocean. For a split second, the world froze, like the air itself was deciding whether to breathe again. The church lights flickered once more, and panic rippled through the crowd as people rushed toward the fallen old man. The 2 officers hesitated, their professional instinct pulling them toward the emergency, while Linda, still in her heels, took advantage of the chaos.
I saw it happen in real time.
Her hand slid behind her clutch. Then she took 2 slow steps backward, then 3. By the time the officers turned toward the noise, she was already halfway to the sacristy door again. Linda, I shouted. She didn't turn. Attorney Whitaker's voice cut through the noise. Stay here, Ava. But I was already moving. The church was spinning in shouts and footsteps, the pastor calling for help, the bride crying, guests scattering like pigeons. But all I saw was the shimmer of Linda's silver dress disappearing behind that wooden door. I pushed through, my shoes slipping on the polished floor. The hallway behind the sanctuary was dim and narrow, smelling of old wax and lilies. Linda, I called again, my voice echoing. For a moment, there was nothing but the sound of my own breathing. Then a sharp clatter. A door closing. I followed the noise and burst into the small church kitchen. And there she was, my stepmother, the woman who'd once brushed my hair before my first day of school, standing by the back exit with her purse clutched tight and her hands trembling. When she turned to face me, her eyes were wet but wild. "You shouldn't have done this, Ava," she said, her voice breaking. "You have no idea what you've started." "I didn't start it," I said quietly. "You did when you took what wasn't yours." Her lip quivered. "You think this is just about money?" she said, her voice low and shaking. "Do you know what it's like to raise a child alone? To work every day and still be treated like a guest in your own house?" "Linda, you had everything," she snapped suddenly, stepping closer. "Your mother adored you. Your father left me scraps. You got her love, her time, her promise. And she laughed bitterly, I got the leftovers. Do you know what it's like to always come second in your own home?" It was the first time she had ever said those words. Not with that honesty. Not with that pain. And for a second, I didn't see a thief. I saw a broken woman who had spent her life competing with ghosts. "I'm sorry you felt that way," I said softly. "But my mom didn't take from you. You took from her, from me." Her jaw clenched. "I was going to pay it back. After the honeymoon. After everything settled. You would have never known." "But I did know," I interrupted. "And that's the difference between guilt and grace, Linda. Grace tells the truth before it's too late." Her hand gripped the doorknob. "I can't stay and let them humiliate me," she whispered. Before I could answer, the door burst open from the other side. The taller officer stepped in, followed by the second one, and Attorney Whitaker. Linda froze. Her eyes darted between them and me, like a trapped animal looking for an exit that didn't exist. "Ma'am," the officer said calmly, "we need to talk. Now." Linda looked down at her shoes, then at me. "You'll regret this, Ava," she said, voice shaking but steady enough to sting. "You think this makes you strong? You'll understand one day, kindness doesn't win. Control does." I didn't reply. The officers let her out quietly, no handcuffs. Not yet, but her silence said enough. As she passed the kitchen doorway, Brianna appeared, her white gown brushing the floor. Mascara streaked down her cheeks. "Mom," she whispered. Linda stopped but didn't turn around. The silence between them was loud, louder than any scream. Then she just said, "I'm sorry, baby," and walked out the side door with the officers. The door closed behind her with a heavy thud. For the first time, Brianna looked at me, really looked at me. "What did you do?" she asked, voice cracking. I swallowed hard. I told the truth. She blinked. "You could have ruined everything." "I didn't ruin it," I said. "She did." Brianna shook her head. "You don't understand. That money, it was supposed to be for her daughter's wedding?" I said, cutting her off. "Yeah. I understand perfectly." Her lips parted, but no words came. Then she turned and ran down the hall, her heels clicking like tiny hammer blows against tile. The rest of the day unfolded like a fever dream. The ambulance came for the old man, who thankfully survived after being treated on site. The guests whispered in clusters like nervous birds, half gossip, half prayer. The pastor tried to calm everyone, his voice trembling through the microphone. When the dust settled, the wedding didn't happen. The groom's family left quietly. Brianna locked herself in the bridal suite. I stood outside under the church's tall oak trees, watching petals from the floral arch blow away in the wind. They looked like torn-up promises floating through the air. Attorney Whitaker joined me, tucking his papers into his briefcase. "It's over for now," he said gently. "But the real process begins on Monday. You'll have hearings, statements, maybe even restitution." I nodded, though I barely heard him. My heart was somewhere else, in the space between what had been destroyed and what might one day heal. "Do you think she'll go to jail?" I asked quietly. He hesitated. "It depends on how honest she decides to be. But the important thing is, your mother's wish is safe now. And so are you."
Safe.
The word felt foreign in my mouth. As he left, the church behind me hummed with the faint sound of a crying violin. Someone was packing up the music that never got played. I took a deep breath. For the first time, the weight on my chest felt a little lighter. But life isn't a straight road. The highs never stay high, and the lows never ask for permission. That night, when I returned home, my phone buzzed with a notification. Unknown number. One text. You shouldn't have trusted him. Check your mom's file again. I froze. The message came with an attachment, a single photo. It was a scanned document. My mom's insurance papers. Only this one had 2 signatures on it. One was hers. The other was mine. Except I never signed anything. And just like that, the ground shifted again. Someone else had been in on it. And whoever it was, they weren't finished yet. The message burned on my screen like a live wire. You shouldn't have trusted him. Check your mom's file again. For a long moment, I just sat there on my bed, staring at the text until the light from my phone dimmed and went black. Then I read it again, over and over, hoping somehow the words would change. But they didn't. The air felt heavy, like the house itself knew something I didn't. I went to my mom's old cedar box, the one that still smelled faintly like her perfume, lavender, and something warm. It had been locked since she passed. I kept her old letters there, her will, the death certificate, and a copy of the insurance policy I'd found months earlier. I'd already shown it to Attorney Whitaker, and he'd said everything looked normal.
But now
my stomach twisted with doubt. I unlocked the box, lifted the papers out one by one, and found the insurance document. My heart pounded as I held it under the desk lamp. The first thing I noticed was the signature line. My mother's name was there, her handwriting delicate but sure. I traced it lightly with my finger. But beside it, there was a second name, Ava Morgan. My name, in cursive,
in ink.
only it wasn't my handwriting. I stared at it until the letters blurred. My heart began to race, my palms slick. Someone had forged my signature. The paper itself looked the same, but the ink, the color was different. I could see faint indentation marks, like someone had pressed too hard trying to make it look natural. I leaned closer and noticed the faintest hint of correction fluid beneath my last name, like someone had traced over another signature first. A chill crawled up my spine. If Linda had done this, why would she text me to check it? And if she didn't, who did? The message had said, you shouldn't have trusted him. Him. My mind flashed to Attorney Whitaker. His calm voice. His confident tone. The way he always had answers ready. He'd been so sure of everything. Too sure. I shook my head.
No.
It didn't make sense. He'd fought for me, filed the motion, even confronted Linda at the wedding. He had no reason to. But then again, I hadn't thought Linda would betray me either. I texted back. Who is this?
What are you talking about?
No response. Then, after 3 minutes that felt like hours. You're not the only one who lost someone. Follow the money. And then the number went offline. I tried calling, but it rang once and went straight to voicemail.
I didn't sleep that night.
My mind replayed everything like a broken film reel. My mom's voice, Linda's eyes, Brianna's tears, the lawyer's calm face. Every piece suddenly felt like part of a bigger puzzle I hadn't seen. By morning, I made a decision. I went back to the legal aid office, clutching the insurance papers in a folder. The building was quiet, too quiet for a Monday. Trina's desk was empty, but her mug was still there, half full of coffee. I knocked on Attorney Whitaker's office door. No answer. I waited, pacing the hallway until Trina appeared, juggling files.
Ava.
I heard about the wedding. Good heavens, are you all right? Trina, I said quickly. Where's Mr. Whitaker? She frowned. He's on leave for a few days. Something came up. What kind of something? She shrugged. Didn't say. Why? I handed her the paper. This signature, he said it was verified, but it's fake. Someone forged my name, and I got a message last night telling me to check. She took the document, squinting. That's strange. He told me he'd already submitted the verification request. I thought it came straight from the insurance office. What if it didn't? I said, my voice trembling. What if someone else sent it? Trina looked uneasy. Sit tight, Ava. Let me check something. She went to her desk, opened her computer, and started typing fast. Her eyes darted across the screen. Then she froze. What? I asked. Her lips parted. According to the internal log, she said slowly, the verification document wasn't uploaded from our office. It was sent from an external address. Not the insurance company, a private one. My throat went dry. Whose? She scrolled. It says, Whitaker Legal Consulting, LLC. The world tilted. I thought he worked for the state, I said quietly. He does, she whispered. At least, that's what I thought. I stood there in silence, every muscle in my body tense. Trina, I said after a long pause, can you print me everything related to my case? Every email, every document, every note. She hesitated. Ava, if what you're thinking. Please, I said firmly. I need to see it for myself. She nodded slowly and began printing. As the papers came out, my stomach twisted tighter. Dozens of pages, emails, receipts, legal drafts. One caught my eye, a payment authorization form from 3 weeks ago. The header read Pioneer Life and Health, Beneficiary Funds Transfer Verification. And under Approved By, there were 2 names, Samuel Whitaker and Linda Hargrove. I felt the blood drain from my face. Trina covered her mouth. Ava, oh my God. My ears rang. My hands went cold. He wasn't my lawyer. He was hers. The hearing, the court order, the dramatic entrance at the wedding. All of it a show. A setup. A way to control the narrative before anyone else could.
But why?
Why would he expose Linda publicly only to be connected to her later? Unless there was more money involved. The insurance policy was small, but what if that wasn't the only one? I grabbed the printed pages and ran. Trina called after me, but I was already out the door, my pulse in my throat. Outside, the sky was gray, heavy with rain. I called the insurance company directly. After 5 minutes of automated messages, a woman named Sheila answered. Thank you for calling Pioneer Life and Health. How can I help you? I tried to keep my voice steady. I'm calling about a policy, Rebecca Morgan. I'm her daughter, Ava. I just need to confirm the number of accounts under her name. Certainly, she said. I heard typing. Let me see. Yes, I see one active policy from 2019. Just one. I interrupted. A pause. Then, actually wait. It seems there were 2 policies under her name. The second was issued in 2021, just months before her passing. It was listed under a joint beneficiary setup. My chest tightened. Joint beneficiary? With who? Another pause. Then she said the name. Samuel Whitaker. I went silent. My heart slammed so hard I could hear it. Ma'am, she said gently. Are you still there? I ended the call without answering. Rain began to fall, slow and heavy, soaking through my clothes as I stood in the parking lot gripping those papers. Whitaker had planned it all from the beginning. He had known about my mom's second policy. He'd made himself look like a savior to control the narrative and clean his tracks publicly. Linda had been his accomplice. They probably planned to move the money overseas after the wedding chaos. And I had walked right into their game. I drove straight to the church, hoping maybe someone there still had footage of that day. Maybe something could prove he was behind it. The parking lot was empty except for one car, a sleek black sedan. It was his. Whitaker stepped out, umbrella in hand, suit dry despite the rain. When he saw me, he smiled faintly. Ava, he said calmly, as if we'd scheduled this meeting. I was hoping we'd talk. My pulse pounded in my ears. You used me, I said. You used my mother's death, her money, everything. He sighed, stepping closer. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple, I shouted. You and Linda stole from me. His expression didn't change. Linda got greedy, he said, voice low. She didn't know how to play the game quietly. I did. You think you stopped something today, but you just made it louder. What does that mean? It means you poked a hole in a ship you were sitting on, he said, slipping his hands into his pockets. Now it's sinking, and everyone's going down with it. I took a step back. You forged my signature. He smiled slightly. Did I? Or did someone send you a photo they shouldn't have had access to? Rain poured harder, thunder cracking above. What do you want? I asked. He tilted his head. Nothing. You already did what I needed. You made it public. Which means when the investigations start, they'll look at Linda, not me. The papers lead to her. The money's gone. And you, his gaze softened, you'll look like a grieving daughter who got manipulated twice. You're disgusting, I whispered. He gave a faint, cold smile. I'm efficient. Then, as if on cue, a black SUV turned the corner and stopped by the curb. He stepped toward it, opened the door, and looked back at me. Walk away, Ava. Sometimes justice isn't worth the price. And then he got in and drove off. I stood there, rain dripping down my face, my heart pounding in my chest. But I knew one thing now. This wasn't over. Because my mother's words echoed in my head like a whisper through the storm. Love hard, kiddo. But don't let your heart go small. If they thought they could bury me in lies, they had no idea how deep I could dig. And this time, I was going to dig until I found every dollar, every name, every truth. For 3 days, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw it. Whitaker's calm smirk in the rain, Linda's trembling hands in the church, the fake signature in black ink staring back at me like a ghost. I didn't tell anyone right away. Not Trina, not Brianna, not the police. I knew if I moved too fast, Whitaker would know. And a man like him, calm, precise, confident, didn't bluff. He moved first. Always. So I did what my mom would have done. I started quietly. I went to Mel's diner, clocked in for the breakfast shift, poured coffee, and listened. The world feels different when you're holding other people's mugs. Their voices start to teach you things. Patterns. Secrets. I wasn't looking for gossip. I was looking for control. And in the slow hours before lunch, I began making my list. Step 1. Track the second policy. Step 2. Find Linda. Step 3. Expose Whitaker publicly. I wasn't thinking about revenge, not yet. I was thinking about justice. About my mom. But justice is a slippery word. The more I chased it, the more it looked like revenge wearing church clothes. The first break came 2 nights later. Brianna showed up at my apartment door. Her mascara was smudged, and she looked like she hadn't slept either. Can I come in? She asked quietly. I hesitated but nodded. She stood in the doorway for a moment before stepping inside like the floor might crumble under her. I visited Mom, she said. My stomach tightened. Where? The police let me see her. She's not in jail yet. They said she's cooperating. Cooperating. I repeated, narrowing my eyes. With who? With him, she said, her voice cracking. She said Whitaker called her from a burner phone. Told her to stay quiet. Promised he'd fix everything. Fix, I said bitterly. He's the reason she's in this mess. Brianna looked at me, tears welling. I didn't know about any of it, Ava. I swear. I thought Mom was just paying for the wedding somehow. I didn't know the money came from your mom's insurance. She told me it was savings. I didn't know about Whitaker either. Please believe me. I studied her face. For the first time in a long while, I saw a girl who looked just as lost as I felt. I believe you, I said softly. But we can't trust anything they say. We need proof. She nodded slowly, pulling out her phone. I think I have something. She showed me her messages, a screenshot of a chat from weeks ago. It was between Linda and a contact saved as SW. SW. Transfer half to my account by Friday. I'll make sure the paperwork looks clean. Linda. You promised no one would find out. SW. Then don't give them a reason to look. There it was.
Clear as day.
I exhaled shakily. Brianna, this is everything. We can take this to the police. She bit her lip. That's not all. She scrolled down and showed me another message. SW. If Ava finds out, Send her to me. I'll handle her. I froze. He expected me to find out, I whispered. Brianna nodded slowly. He played both of you. That was when I decided I wasn't going to wait for anyone else to handle me again. I contacted a journalist. Her name was Lena Price, a freelance investigator who'd written about financial fraud and government corruption. I'd read one of her articles in college. She had a reputation for getting people to talk, and for burning bridges that deserved to fall. When I emailed her, I didn't expect a reply. But an hour later, she called. Her voice was brisk, sharp, confident. You're Ava Morgan? The insurance fraud case, out of Montgomery County. Yes, I said. And it's bigger than you think. She chuckled softly.
They always say that.
But I like the sound of your voice. It's the kind people underestimate. I met her the next morning at a cafe downtown. She wore black sunglasses even indoors and carried a recorder like a weapon. Start from the beginning, she said, pressing the record button. I told her everything. The fake signature, the text message, the second policy, the staged wedding scene, the messages between Linda and Whitaker. By the time I finished, her expression had changed. She leaned forward. This Whitaker guy, you said he worked through legal aid? Yes. She smirked. He's not on any state payroll. I frowned. What do you mean? I checked before meeting you. No attorney by that name is registered in Montgomery's legal aid system. He's been operating independently, probably using fake credentials, which means everything he filed could be invalid, including your restraining order. So, what do I do now? She looked at me carefully. We expose him. Together. That's how it began. The quiet alliance between the grieving daughter and the journalist with a taste for fire. We met in secret, coffee shops, parking lots, the back of the diner after hours. Lena taught me how to follow paper trails, how to file information requests without drawing attention. We traced Whitaker's consulting firm to an address that didn't exist. But the P.O. box linked to a shell company in Atlanta. That company's owner? Linda Hargrove. My stepmother and the lawyer had been funneling money for years. The second policy wasn't the only one they'd touched. There were two more under other names. Fake widows. Fake deaths. Real payouts. I felt sick. They've been doing this to other families, I whispered, staring at the spreadsheet Lena had pulled. How many? 6 that we can prove, she said. Maybe more. I clenched my fists. Then they're going down. Lena gave a small, approving smile. Now you sound like someone who's ready for the next step. What's that? We bait him. She explained her plan. I'd pretend to want to negotiate with Whitaker. Tell him I wanted peace, that I wouldn't press charges if he returned my mother's funds quietly. We'd meet in a public place wired with recorders and hidden cameras. It was risky, but I said yes. 2 nights later, I sent the message. Ava, I want to fix this. Meet me tomorrow. No lawyers. Just us. Whitaker, smart girl. Where? Ava, the Riverbend Cafe noon. Whitaker, don't be late. Lena and I set everything up. She disguised herself as a customer 2 tables away. The microphones were hidden inside a purse and a pen. At noon, Whitaker arrived, crisp suit, no umbrella this time. He looked perfectly calm, as if the storm from the wedding had never happened. Ava, he said smoothly, sitting across from me. You look tired. Grief does that, I said flatly. He smiled faintly. Let's make this simple. You stop digging, and I'll wire back what's left of your mother's funds. Call it closure. Closure, I repeated. Is that what you call it when you forge someone's name and stage a court order? He didn't flinch. You've been talking to people you shouldn't. The journalist, perhaps? My stomach dropped. How do you know about? He leaned closer, voice lowering. Because she used to work for me. My blood ran cold. Lena? I whispered. He smirked. Smart girl. But not smart enough. She turned on me once. Now she's using you to clean her slate. My pulse pounded in my ears. I glanced toward Lena. Her eyes met mine, sharp and alert, but unreadable. Whitaker leaned back in his chair. You have no idea who you're dealing with. You think this is about one policy? You're standing in a web, Ava. And the more you move, the tighter it gets. You're bluffing, I said, though my voice shook. Am I? He said softly. Ask yourself who texted you that night. Who sent you that photo? It wasn't me. He stood up, placed a folded envelope on the table, and smiled that same calm, polite smile.
Take this.
A parting gift. Don't open it here. Then he left. The moment he was gone, Lena rushed to me. You okay? Was he telling the truth about you?
I asked.
Her expression hardened. He's trying to divide us. Don't let him. We ended the meeting, packed up, and went back to her office. My hands shook as I opened the envelope. Inside was a single photo. It showed a hospital hallway. My mother, weak but smiling, sitting in a wheelchair. Beside her, Whitaker. He was holding her hand. And on the back of the photo, in my mother's handwriting, were 5 words. He promised you'd be safe. The room started spinning. Lena reached for the photo. Ava let me. But I couldn't hear her anymore. Because in that moment, I realized something that made my stomach drop like a stone. Whitaker hadn't just known my mother. He'd been there before she died. And maybe, just maybe, the biggest lie of all hadn't started after her death. It had started before it.